Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Claire German and I'm the Managing Director of Design Centre Chelsea Harbour. I'd like to give you a very, very warm welcome to Design Date, our third episode, which is very exciting, on design collaborations, the curated space, which is very kindly been chaired by Hatta Byng, the editor of House and Garden. We're absolutely thrilled you're here today, Hatta. So over the last weeks, we've been keeping our community engaged and inspired by bringing together designers, industry insiders, and media hosts for some conversations online. And we're absolutely thrilled to have Anne Grafton, Managing Director and Creative Director of GP&J Baker, and interior designer Suzy Hoodless, who are both joining us today to chat with Hatta. So I've got a hunch that there will be a lot to talk about and it will be very chitty chatty. So we might not have time for questions and answers. However, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Hatta and thank you for listening and enjoy the session.
Hello to all those watching, and thank you, Claire and Becky, for inviting me to chair today's conversation and bringing us all together. Although we're slowly emerging from our own sort of private lockdown worlds, it still feels far from normal, and it's conversations like these that remind us that the world goes on and that it must go on, and that there is in fact much to be celebrated. In this case, it's the creative power of collaboration. And I'm thrilled to be talking to Anne and Suzy today. And I suppose the obvious place to start is a collaboration between the two of them, which was Suzy's room for the GP&J Baker showroom last autumn. And perhaps, Anne, you could start with telling us how this came about and why you asked Suzy to design a room for you.
Thank you, Hatta. Well, and good afternoon, everyone. We have had this beautiful space in Chelsea Harbour as part of our showroom. And we decided about 2 years ago that we would invite sort of wonderful designer friends of GP&J Baker to create this space. So we started with our first space with Ben Pentreath, which was fabulous. And we thought, well, who could we speak to who's a great friend of GP&J Baker, uses lots of our fabrics and has a more sort of contemporary twist on our classic fabrics and using our classic fabrics. And Suzy was one of the first people that sprung to mind. And Tom, who's our wonderful showroom manager in Chelsea Harbour, loves working with Suzy and her team. So it was a very comfortable, easy collaboration. And we invited Suzy to do the room, and we were thrilled that she immediately actually said that she would love to. So, it was just a wonderful thing to do together.
Yes, absolutely, and you can see the results. And Suzy, were you given a particular brief?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Hatta. I think the thing about collaborations is they're very sort of natural processes, and we talked about the fabric and this wonderful ikat inspired Rio velvet, and it is just the most, if only we could touch it, it's just the most wonderful, luxurious velvet. And so Anne and her team sent over a sort of long length that I had hanging in my studio, and I sort of looked at it and just sort of spent a bit of time living with it, not for very long because this was a fast moving project. But what we wanted to do was create an impactful, modern, contemporary, and sort of timeless space, and something that was going to sort of provoke sort of conversation and be different from Ben's incredible space the year before. So we worked with Lawford Antiques, who I know collaborate a lot with GP&J Baker, and Cara Mandaglio and other suppliers of interesting, wonderful furniture. And really, it just, like any interior project, it was a sort of organic sort of, evolution of creating this sort of modern space.
And so which came first, the sort of type of room that you were going to design, which is a sort of office, I suppose, study,
Yeah.
or was it the fabric that then kind of?
Well, again, I think we wanted to do something different. Ben had done a very elegant, sort of stunning sitting room the year before, and so we knew we wanted to do something and should do something sort of different. And I think the fabric is very handsome, and for me, study was my in. We went with that pretty quickly.
Okay, brilliant. And did you? Yes. So how? And when you first, so you talked about sort of selecting this fabric, but was it a process of wading through lots of fabrics? Was it these the latest fabrics, or how did you sort of land upon that particular one? Because obviously there were many you could have chosen to have as your main focal point.
Is that for me?
Well, I have to say that we did say to Suzy, look, it would be much easier, as this is our sort of big September launch for Focus, if you could possibly choose something from one of our new collections. I mean, we didn't sort of say that was an absolute must, but we said it would be lovely to showcase something we're launching. And as you know, velvet has been such a huge trend in design over the past few years, and printed velvets. We were launching a printed velvet collection of some of our iconic designs. Right. And so we sort of said to Suzy, look, we have these, we have many other things. And I think she just felt velvet was glamorous and sort of the moment, really, and found something she loved.
And I mean, in terms of the sort of collaboration, it must have been quite a thing for you that it's a velvet covering all the walls. I mean, it was a big undertaking, an expensive velvet that, and you had to sort of kind of go with her vision, didn't you, I suppose, and commit to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big sort of gulp when she said, can we cover the walls with this? And it was like, well, yes, but I do actually think that, you know, that space is there. I think Chelsea Harbour overall is there to inspire people of how to decorate, how to use fabrics or wallpapers or furniture in our showrooms. And I feel, you know, we need to use our showrooms as a showcase to persuade designers and even, you know, their clients that they often bring in with them to actually do something that is brave and different. And if we can't showcase that, then I think it's difficult sometimes for people to imagine what something, you know, a fabric walling of velvet would be. So in a way, it was an inspired thing for Suzy to do, because it really caught people's imagination, and lots of people would go up and stroke the walls because they felt so fabulous.
Yes, and it's very memorable. So no, it's brilliant. Yeah. And in the sort of different collaborations you've had for these rooms, have you has each been the process been quite different? How has it varied between the different designers?
Yeah, they have all been different. What's been fantastic is our people actually sort of choosing things they love. Ben Pentreath, for example, chose the beautiful Baker Magnolia, which has been his favorite Baker fabric for many years, and he's used on several of his projects for clients. So he immediately said, I'm going to choose that sort of colorful, joyous fabric, and I'd like to produce a sort of wonderful sitting room. And Suzy, which is very, very of the moment, wanted to do a study, which I think we'd all love to have that study in our house right now to work in. And then Emma Sims-Hilditch did a wonderful bedroom for the spring in the space. So I think it's wonderful that we have all these fabulous designers who work with us and can showcase our fabrics in the way they see them, and that we, you know, love to trust them to come up with something wonderful to showcase there.
Yeah, and that's why you do them, because they're bringing a completely different sort of spirit, I suppose.
Yeah.
And perhaps a question for both of you: what do you think makes a successful collaboration?
Well, I think it's an understanding of each other. And I think it's, I think so much of design is instinct led, and I don't think it's something you really think about. You have to like who you collaborate with. I mean, that sounds pretty basic, and maybe, but it's true. You have to get on with people. There has to be a chemistry. There has to be, the best thing is if it's just sort of organically grown, and actually you're not trying to force it. I'd used GP&J Baker fabrics for years and have always loved them, and so this was the sort of natural next step. So I think it's it's interesting that to bring different aesthetics, different companies, different parties together, and actually you create a third element when you collaborate, and that's what's sort of so interesting, I think.
Yeah, and that's exciting. And I suppose involved in that is a lot of trust, and that comes with knowing and having worked with people. And
yeah, I think trust and being brave and being authentic, and it's so interesting to me as a designer to really understand Anne's vision, understand the fabric and the quality and how it's made, and why this fabric was produced, and the inspiration behind it. So it's really good. It challenges me. It's just a wonderful thing to do.
Absolutely. And Anne, this velvet is part, obviously, as we've already discussed, a collection of velvets that I suppose in and of themselves they're a collaboration with the mills that are producing them, and they're quite a feat. Do you want to talk us through a bit more about the actual velvets, and which is, I suppose, what also excited Suzy, so it'd be lovely for other people to hear about it.
Yeah, well, the particular velvet that that Suzy chose for the room is.
And actually, there's I think there are more slides. Sorry, just that Becky could put up while you're. But maybe you talk, and then we'll have.
That are actually the fabric in the room, the velvet in the room, is actually printed in one of my very favourite mills. It's a wonderful printing mill in Italy, just outside of Milan. And it is a mill that produces also for fashion. So it prints wonderful silks and print for Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana and all of the high-end, really wonderful fashion brands as well. Their quality is absolutely beautiful. And this particular velvet is dyed before it's printed. So it goes through several processes of being dyed. The ground is dyed, so it has a wonderful depth of colour when it's actually finally printed. And then it has this sort of luxurious finish, so it feels, the pile is very thick and heavy, and it feels incredibly rich. And so it's a really beautiful product that is fantastic quality, would last forever, become an heirloom. You could sort of give it away, which I think today people want things that have great heritage, but also great quality that lasts. And we also took some of our very classic Baker designs and we also recolored those and printed those on velvet as well. So some of the designs that we printed, one of the design in the last slide, Nymphius, which is one of Baker's best-selling and most iconic designs, was first printed in 1913. So it's over 100 years old as a design, and it's been printed through the years in many different ways on linen and silk. And we just felt velvet was perfect for this time. So yes, a great collaboration with our printers of our fabrics.
Yeah. And so for something like ICAT, which involves so many processes, how long, I mean, that in terms of the design process and getting it right, that presumably takes quite a bit of time because there are lots of different tweaks to be made.
Yeah, first of all, we have to obviously come up with the design, then we have the files made, then we print it, or the screens made to print. So we have to do lots of colour trials, lots of patience, lots of backwards and forwards. And so it takes, I mean, the collection took about a year from when we thought, let's do this, to when Suzy actually saw it and started, you know, we showed it to her in the summer of last year. And yes, it's about a year's process. from start to finish with. But I'm sure, you know, with now all this video conferencing, we'll probably fast track some of the processes by being able to do some video conferencing in between. But yeah, I mean, our fabrics really are a sort of labor of love by the design studio, and the passion for what we do, and the technical skills of our mills. You know, so much today you have to use the technology, and also we're all trying to be much more environmentally friendly with the dyes we're using and the finishing processes, and those things are a big consideration too. Yeah. So yes, it's a great collaboration, and then to see the design at the end being used in another way with a sort of middle person in the process in many ways.
Yeah, and I suppose so sometimes, presumably those mills will come to you with excited about something new, way of doing something, or new technology that might inspire what your fabric, inspire a fabric, I suppose. So it's a two-way, presumably it's a two-way.
Yes,
thing.
Absolutely. And many of our mills have archives as well that go back hundreds of years. But also, yes, they come to us and say, you know, we've developed this wonderful new yarn, or we've developed this great technique. And of course, every mill at the moment is looking to produce antibacterial finishes for their fabrics, which on luxury fabrics like velvet is a challenge, but they are getting there with, you know, because they feel that that is going to be something that particularly with the coronavirus and other viruses, that people will be wanting to have luxury, but luxury with finishes that can be wiped or can be that are antibacterial. So, you know, that also now is a big challenge for the industry to be able to meet the needs, the changing needs of the market, which they, you know, which is very technical skills. So yes, there's lots of levels in producing it. When people see a piece of fabric on furniture, you know, the technical knowledge and the love and the colouring and the number of people that are involved in actually producing that piece of fabric is really quite amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you or your team sort of travel to the mills and the place, the manufacturer, the printers? And
yes, we do. I mean, it's I suppose through my years working with product, which are many now, it still is the most enjoyable and exciting part of my entire role. I love going to the mills. I love seeing the skills of the people that work within the mills, whether it's embroidery or wallpaper printing or weaving. You know, the technical skills and the color skills and all of the background of the team that you work with is amazing. And I've been on fantastic trips to India, down to Kerala in the south, to the hand weaving mills, and sat on verandas in the sunshine with, you know, creating things with the design team, and working with mills up in Prato in the sort of northern Italy above Florence, where the weaving mills go back, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years, where they used to, a lot of the weaving mills used to weave things for churches, you know, the church vestments and for the papal vestments and things. So lots of these mills have amazing heritage, not just of today, but I love traveling. I love when you've created something, or we've all been working on something for a year or more, and you see that first great length come off a print machine, whether it's a wallpaper, the first rolls or the first piece of fabric, and it's just such a joy to create something, and then you know, pass it on to the designers, and then see how, you know, how we imagine it being used isn't necessarily how a designer will use our product, but that's the joy as well of seeing it being used in all different ways when it's finally in a finished piece of furniture or curtains or blinds.
And only you really know the whole, all that was involved in the process. And how, I mean, you presumably built up these, the who you work with over years and years. Would you work with new mills now, new manufacturers?
Yes, we do. I mean, we do work with new mills. I mean, we have our favorite mills as well, just because I think they come to understand your brand and your colors, and it's sort of second nature. And, you know, it's like designers having favorite suppliers or favorite craftspeople. It's the same thing. But I always think it's exciting to work with someone new, because they bring a new sort of imagination of how they see your product or how you could work with them. And it's always good to move. But I think that also technology, particularly digital printing, has made an enormous impact on our industry. It's allowed lots of smaller companies and designers to produce product that perhaps wouldn't have had the funds or the ability to print hundreds of meters in the past. But it's also allowed us to reprint or reproduce designs from our archives that perhaps had too many colors, or the design height didn't fit conventional machine printing today. So digital printing has been, something that when it came onto the market a few years ago, we all sort of thought, oh my goodness, that's dreadful. And today, like everything, it's evolved. And I think many people wouldn't know the difference between a digitally printed piece of fabric and a conventional screen print. So that's also good. Using new technology, new yarn skills is something I think we all need to embrace as we work together.
Yes, exactly. And helps your kind of evolve and in the way you design and what you design, doesn't it, as well? And actually, I think that we've got some slides now of the block printing, which it would be great to look at, because that kind of shows do you want to just talk us through these ones?
This is a new collection that we're launching in September called Block Party, and it's a very naive block printed collection. Blocks are sort of are obviously made from wood. They are handmade, most of them, and many of them are very old, from archives within the mills. And this particular design actually was a design that we found at one of the Indian mills that we work with, which we really loved the simplicity of it. Block printing I absolutely love, because it goes right back to the very craftsman and skill of printing. And here you can see the dye being mixed in a bucket, and all the colour is mixed by eye. There's no colour machines with sort of the high-tech machines, and the block printing is also by eye, and a printer can print about 20 meters of fabric in a day, and the printing has to be in daylight because of colour matching. And you can see at the side there is the dye in a sort of stamp well, where you could put the block and then print. And it's really the early form of cloth printing, and I just love block printing and the naivety of it, and the craftsmanship and the skill that's required to actually print these fabrics. We also print, this is part of the whole collection, we also print some of our classic designs with block printing. Many of them are printed now in Thailand, and they can be designs that can be printed with up to 20 or 30 blocks, and they take weeks to print. And again, the skill that's required for that is absolutely huge. So it's two extremes really of printing, digitally printing to block printing, but they all have a different quality and different beauty about them. But the naivety of block printing is the thing I love the most.
Yeah, well, they look lovely. That's very exciting for the autumn. Everybody will be looking forward to those. Suzy, I suppose in many ways, for you, the ultimate collaboration is with your client on whichever project you're working on. How do you kind of like to work with a client? What makes a good working relationship?
Well, I think a collaboration with a client can work in so many different forms, and it really depends, and it's my job to find out sort of early on how they want to work. Yeah. Some clients want to be incredibly involved and want to come to workshops and showrooms, and they want to really understand the process. They love the provenance, and they are sort of, you know, deeply sort of involved in the whole process. Some clients don't want to be involved at all. They give me a brief, and it can be a very brief, and then they say, off you go and get on with it. I had a client in Scotland many years ago, and her brief was, here's your budget, you've got 12 months to do the project, and please go off and do it, and please don't contact me because I just am too busy, I can't cope with it, I've been building this house for years and I need to move on. So, that's sort of slightly terrifying, and that's obviously pretty unusual. But I don't mind either way, really. I think, that client, there's a sort of, the important thing is that there's a trust, and that's what I have to do pretty quickly, is I have to build up trust and confidence in my client. And once we've established that, it's kind of like sort of speed dating, I suppose. You've got to very quickly get to know each other. And once they're sort of confident, then you're away. Yeah. So it can be, and I think it's really important to be open to collaborating in sort of different ways.
Yeah, and ultimately, if they are open, if they want to collaborate and be very involved, I suppose it's their house, and you want it to reflect them as much as.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I think everyone, again, is very different, but I'm not a designer that says, this is my style, this is what you have to have, and here's the design. I really want to work with clients, and even if they don't really know what they want, my job is to extract that and to create an aesthetic that is an extension of their personality. Yeah. And hopefully by the end they say, this is exactly what I wanted and more, but I would never have known how to have got to this process. And thank you very much, goodbye, and the door closes. So it's, I'm very clear at the beginning that it's their home, if it's a private project, and it is not my home, and yes, it will have a sort of stamp, a sort of Suzy Hoodless stamp, if you like, but I'm creating a home for my client.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it, you work on commercial projects as well as private. Is it very different working with a commercial client as to a private client? It must be, but I'd be interested to know the differences.
Yeah, it is. The commercial projects, they're completely opposing. And actually, I love to have a mix. We do far more residential, but we always have one or two commercial projects. And commercial tends to be, the client comes to you and they're very specific on budget, they're very specific on timeline, and then really they're looking to you for the rest. So we have much more creative freedom, I suppose, with commercial projects. And residential, that's not always the case. Sometimes we have very open budgets with clients for residential. Sometimes they're very specific. The timeline can be more sort of flexible, but I suppose they're more passionate, and there's I'm dealing with an individual. So and
presumably you get more toing and froing on kind of decision making because it's for their home, and there's emotions tied up with it, rather than saying just on a commercial thing you're saying yes to something. It's like doing like your spare bedroom or whatever. It's at one remove, isn't it?
Well, I think what we try and do is we try and hopefully have a process that sort of encapsulates the pitfalls and really what going back to this idea of confidence, what we do at the beginning is really work on creating this sort of concept. So however detailed or vague the brief is, my job is to sort of create a visual translation of that brief, and to actually respond and present back to the clients images that sort of sum up the look and feel of what they may or may not think they want. So, and actually once we've done that, and I always say to clients, look, this is my proposal, but at this stage, I really want you to say, I love it all. Hopefully not, I hate it all, but maybe there's a mix of both. Maybe it's, I really like that, but I'm not sure about that. So, that early stage is really where we sort of bash things through. And I'm really sort of keen to hone that, in quite a lot of detail before we get on to the next stage. Because if we do, actually, the theory is that it's quite plain sailing after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And our next images are at the television centre, which is obviously a commercial project. These are for a series, is it, of the show flats and show.
So yes, it's the former BBC, so it's television centre at White City, and there's over 1,000 apartments, and we've been working with the developer Stanhope for over 5 years, and again it's been a very organic collaboration. We started off designing a sort of exhibition, and then we designed the sort of marketing suite and show apartments, and now we do lots of apartments in the building for owners, and we've also designed all of their sort of communal spaces and the lobby and meeting room and screening room, and so it's endless. Yeah. And this is a collaboration, really. I put this image in because we worked with Christine van der Heerd on the rugs, and again that was very natural. I've known Christine for over 20 years, since my days working at Wallpaper magazine. And she was the obvious choice, and she's a local. She lives in Notting Hill, and so when we talked about the project, it was really important that this was encapsulating the sort of heritage of the BBC, which has this incredible heritage, but also, we're there to create something new and modern. And it's not, well, there are still a couple of studios, but this has become sort of homes. And how do we create these show apartments and then now homes for owners that don't feel like show apartments and perhaps sort of sterile and neutral, and so Christine was wonderful to work with. This is a satellite from the BBC building, and these are made in silk in India. And just the process, again, going back to what you were saying, Anne, just the number of people involved in creating these wall hangings and rugs is just unbelievable. And I think that's what's such a wonderful thing about collaborating, is actually everyone brings new and different ideas, and you have to be really sort of rigorous with your ideas and confident to say, no, I don't think that's working, or what about this, or but also listening to what everyone else has got to say, and that sort of toing and froing is sort of labor intensive, and it takes a lot of time, but it's kind of what challenges and creates sort of wonderful projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that case, from what I know of Christine's work, you're new and different together to what she usually does, which is also is exciting for everybody too, and for presumably the crafts people making it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And you and so I mean, something like that when they're going to India was obviously. You're getting samples back, that could take months. You've therefore got to get clients kind of to agree to quite a long process.
Yes, I think that's the thing. I think we do sort of bespoke items on most projects, but it doesn't work for every project, and you need to have a client that understands the lead time, the process, the budget, all of these things are magnified with sort of bespoke
And do you find your clients kind of interested in the story behind the piece and the process behind the pieces?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how it's changed, I'm sure, and you'll agree, over kind of 10, 20 years. And I think, you know, there's a lot more confidence and people have a much better sort of design sort of understanding and language. And I think that clients, they're really interested in the provenance. They want to come to workshops and studios and showrooms, and they love understanding how things are made. And I think that certainly makes it a much more interesting project for us, and it pushes us, and it just helps clients sort of understand, you know, what they're getting, and so that can only be a really good thing.
Yeah, especially when obviously none of this is, you know, it's all cost money, and it's therefore to know what's involved is part of the process.
Yeah.
And I think if we go on to there's the next image, which is the next couple of images, in fact, are of your project in the Albany. In Albany, and tell us a bit about this, because this is obviously kind of an amazing property, and what were you doing here?
Well, this is the most sort of bespoke of bespoke projects, I think, and it is still sort of in the making. So this is not yet, which is why you're mainly seeing these boards rather than sort of beautifully shot images. But this is a client who is very exacting. You know, nearly, well, all of our clients are you know, at the top of their game, whatever their industry is. And so with that comes a sort of level of detail and just a level of sort of, you know, a level of demand. You know, they are demanding, our clients, and they want a very sort of exacting process. So we have to collaborate with suppliers and craftspeople that we know that can deliver on that. So this project is highly bespoke. We've worked a lot with Rupert Bevan, and he has created this kitchen, which these are some of the finishes here. And it was inspired by Maison de Verre, which is this very sort of contemporary industrial building in Paris, designed in the 1930s. So it's you can see this is a waterworks tap. I mean, if you could only see the scale of this thing, it's kind of this highly engineered sort of, you know, serious machine of a tap. So the idea is this, and if we go on to the next slide, this is just showing some of the sort of the furniture and some of the fabrics that we have chosen. There's lots of design classics, there's Scandinavian furniture, there's a Brazilian dining table. I mean, it's this sort of extraordinary alchemy of pieces. And then on the next slide, we have
very quickly there. So with Rupert, you're collaborating on the surfaces. So
we've collaborated with him on the kitchen, and these are all sort of elements within the kitchen. It's a sort of big kitchen, sort of living room space. So, you know, what I'm really keen to do when we're working on, you know, a project is there has to be a consistency, but there has to also be a sort of flow throughout the space. So it's how the design of the kitchen then kind of impacts on the furniture and vice versa. But with Rupert, it's been a really sort of labor intensive. I mean, it's been working on it for a very long time, and, you know, but what wonderful. And, you know, I love going to his workshop in Queen's Park and, you know, driving him mad for a couple of hours, and you know, and just pulling down samples from the wall, and we open drawers and we find all sorts of other things, and, you know, and actually it just evolves, and then he'll go off and make samples, and they'll come back, and, you know, and we'll keep tweaking it.
Yes, and that's where you get something really, really special, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Highly bespoke. Yeah. The trick is knowing when to stop, I think.
And when you found the answer. And,
exactly, yeah.
Yes, and tell us about this project.
So then this is another commercial project. This is Albright, the private, women's only private members club in Mayfair. So again, very different. This was a super fast turnaround. I think it went from a shell, concrete shell, about 12,000 square feet to this finished product in about 5 months, so really fast. So this was really collaborating, on a commercial project and with a contractor. This is obviously going to, you don't have the luxury of toing and froing with samples. So actually this is sort of where experience and trust in your suppliers really sort of comes in, and being very specific on drawings and concepts, and you've just got to sort of go with it, and you're taking a risk, but they hopefully are calculated risks. So this was
people you're working with, I suppose, and that's why you can you go for it. Yeah. I'm quite aware that we probably need to move on a bit quicker.
Yes.
We've got
So, and this is actually a wallpaper, a collaboration with Adam Ellis, and between us we have been working on this, and the inspiration was Where the Wild Things Are and Henry Rousseau, and that was my sort of inspiration and brief to Adam, if you like, and he's sort of created this, and again we've been toing and froing and adding things and taking things out, and we've created this rather sort of fantastical, magical sort of jungle.
And it's a wallpaper that's going to wrap around.
It's a wallpaper that's going to wrap around a bedroom, exactly.
Quite incredible, yes. And then finally, where something like this, do you go to the artist and ask them, or do you go with quite a specific idea?
So this is an illustrator who I've worked with over quite a few years, called Marion Rhodes, and I had quite a specific idea of this, nights and forests and woods and nighttime, and sort of we sort of really come up with a sort of an idea of what the overall look is going to be. If you can see, it's a wardrobe in a boy's bedroom, and then from that she just sort of runs away and sort of does it. So that that's fun.
Yeah, magical, lovely. Lucky child, really.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And you also, I think you do work with people like Suzy, or interior designers or clients, to create bespoke fabrics. Am I right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we quite often are asked to create something bespoke, or recreate something from the past that somebody maybe used and that they want replaced, or exactly the same replaced. So, I mean, with our Royal Warrant, we quite often do these fantastic projects with the Royal Household here in the UK, in the Royal Residences. We can create bespoke fabrics for them, as well as them using some of our regular fabrics. But we also, with our archive, we were asked last year to work on a fantastic project with the Landmark Trust, where they were restoring a wonderful Voysey building. And they actually found some old images of the building, and we had a lot of the designs in our archive. We have quite a lot of Voysey designs in the Baker archive. So we worked on that project with the Landmark Trust as a bespoke project. We also worked with the National Trust a few years ago. They were restoring Anglesey Abbey, and they came to us with all of the fabrics, and we worked on a huge project with them. But also with designers, they come and say, we love this fabric, like the magnolia, but we'd love to, could we print it on a different cloth, or could we produce it in a different way, or could we produce it in a different colorway?
Right.
And we often do that. We've recently worked on a bespoke project for the Queen of Belgium, and we've worked last year on some major projects with Connaught and Claridge's on bespoke fabrics, as well as working with other designers. And as you were saying, people absolutely love visiting our design studio, which is in Harbour Yard in Chelsea Harbour. And we really encourage people to do that. And quite often people will wander around there and pick things up and say, you know, this is perfect for a project I'm working on. Could I possibly order, you know, 50 meters, 100 meters? We'd love them to be 3,000 meters. So we do lots of bespoke projects, and we love those. You know, it's again, as Suzy said, it's a real collaboration of getting trials, giving them to the customers, they take them to their client, we make changes to them, we send them back again, and it is a true collaboration. And so we've worked with lots and lots of beautiful buildings, you know, historic buildings, and also with designers. We're working on projects at the moment for designers, and they're the things I think that stretch our studio, and also it keeps you abreast of what people are using all the time, or what they're looking for that we don't have, which maybe we should be considering. And also people sometimes use our archive. If they're working on a big project, they have a client like Suzy's who they just want absolute bespoke. We have, you know, thousands of amazing documents that we can recreate for them. So yes, we do lots of projects which we really enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point to think. You know, then you're really understanding how they're being used, rather than kind of creating a collection not knowing, kind of thing. And the constant dialogue and again the collaboration, other things are coming out of it beyond the actual product, which is kind of brilliant to hear. Certainly, I loved coming to your design studios. It's like going into a sort of sweetie shop with all the archive fabrics that get pulled out and wonderful things, extraordinary. I'm sort of aware that we've sort of come to the end of our time. So thank you, Suzy and Anne, for talking to us today. It's been a kind of real joy to discuss your work and the fruits of your collaborations, which have been wonderful, and to see the endless possibilities. I'm sure everybody watching has been inspired and learned a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.